So as we were saying, we have 4 broadcasts on a weekly basis. Now, also coming up, 2 announcements this week, coming up on this Meminida. This Saturday, December 8th, here in Washington, D.C., is our first annual Kaet Soul Food Abibiman. We're having an event. All of our events are free, of course, open to the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African Black community only. The term Ka and Kaet are the male and female terms for the soul, the divine consciousness, the deity that dwells in the head region of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, our personal divinity. That term Ka and Kaet is Kra and Krawa in Akan, meaning the same thing, of course, Ori, Inu in the Yoruba tradition, Say and Bodun. But the terms Ka and Kaet not only mean soul or divine consciousness, Ka and Kaet in the language of ancient Kemet also means food offerings. Offerings that we give, food just in general, but food offerings we give to the Aboson, the divinity, we give to the Nsamanfo, the ancestors and so forth. So Ka and Kaet mean soul, but they also mean food. So we're having our soul food communal gathering for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, December 17th, this Saturday in Washington, D.C. You can sign up. Registration is free. Registration is required. You sign up on the event notification in Facebook for the Kaet Soul Food event. As we said earlier, admission is always free. We will be doing a presentation on the Kemeti Feku, properly contextualizing the context and religious practice, dealing with Kemet as an ancestral foundation. When we practice our ancestral religious practices, inclusive of Hoodoo, which is the Akan tradition in North America, Juju, which is the Yoruba tradition in North America, Vodun, which is the Fon and Eve tradition in North America, Wanga, which is the Obambo and other Bantu traditions in North America, Grigri, which is the Bambara and other Mindi traditions in North America, are various traditions. And Gengan, which is the Fanga tradition in North America. So our various traditions, that foundation, that ancestral Feku, that ancestral association, ancestral foundation born of Kanit and Kemet, permeates our various expressions of ancestral religious practice. There's no separation between the culture of ancient Kanit, Nubian Kemet, and ancestral religious practices. They are the same practices that we have engaged in for thousands of years. So we're going to deal with that in detail during the presentation. We have food vendors, raw, vegan food, cooked vegan food, organic coffee, organic tea. Those are the vendors that we will have. We'll be doing a presentation, a free event, of course. Come out, doors open at 6:30. Lighting begins at 7. This Saturday, December 17th, here in Washington, D.C. And for those who came on the phone line, hit the number 1 quickly, just so we can make sure if you can hear clearly on the phone line. Hit the number 1 so we can see that your hand is raised. We were having an issue earlier. We just want to make sure everybody on the phone line can hear clearly. So hit the number 1. We want to do that check. Okay, and for those who couldn't hear online, just reboot one more time. We had to reboot the chat room and we had to reboot the other pieces. All right. So, okay, so I see a couple of people hit number 1, showing that they can hear on the phone line. Okay, good. So, yes, so Saturday, Meminida, December 17th is our event. We have 3 annual conferences in D.C. We had our first annual Hoodoo Nation Festival in October. It was October 17th of last year. That was our first annual Hoodoo Nation Festival, dealing with the Akan tradition in North America, which Hoodoo is the Akan tradition. In March, we had our first annual Echisign Ancestral Religious Reversion Conference here in Washington, D.C., where we brought together different healeresses from the different traditions. We have engaged in ancestral religious reversion. Echi means back, sign means again. to return. Echisan means to return back. We're dealing with ancestral religious reversion, returning back to our pristine, ancestrally inherited culture and religious practices. So we had people speaking on the Vodun tradition, the Juju tradition, the Fonenebe tradition, Vodou, Yoruba tradition, which is Juju, the Wanga tradition, which is Ovambo, Ngala, and so forth, the Ngangain tradition, which is Fang, F-A-N-G, from Gabon, but we preserved that, of course, in North America as well. So we had different presenters. We had 4 presenters there in the building. We had 2 video submissions, so we had 6 presentations altogether. All 6 of them are on our YouTube page. March around the time of the Festeo Bere, or the spring equinox. In June, around the time of the summer solstice, we have our Ojiraman Afashe. Ojiraman is the purified nation, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. Ojiraman is our designation for our people. Ojira means purification. Oman means nation. So we are the purified nation. Return to our ancestral culture. Mine also means, but it also means Western Hemisphere, the setting sun. So we're the purified Ojira, Oman nation, Oman in the land of the setting sun, the Western Hemisphere. That's Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people in the Western Hemisphere. We were dealing with Amaniye nationism, the purification of nationalism. Nationism from a firm, ancestrally rooted cultural and religious foundation. So we had our nationism conference. We have presenters dealing with different aspects of nationism, nation building, and so forth. So those are the 3 annual conferences. And we had our 2nd annual Huduman Hudu Nation Festival this past October 16th, just a couple of months ago. So we have those 3 annual conferences. They're all-day conferences. They're free and open to Afurakani people only. We have a number of presenters throughout the course of the day. We have vendors all day long. It's usually from 11 to 7. So 3 weeks after the autumn equinox in October, we have Huduman. Around the spring equinox, we have Echiman, ancestral religious reversion. The summer solstice, we have Ojiraman, dealing with nationalism, the purification of nationalism. And then now around the name period, which is the so-called winter solstice, right prior to that, we are having our Katayat soul food gathering. So this is coming up. So you can sign up on the event notification. You can also go to our Ojiraman network, social media network here as well. Okay. And other announcement, and we'll make it again, and you can share this as well. We announced on Monday, Joda, on the broadcast, that leading up to this event on Saturday, Minminida, December 17th, we once again posted on our publications page where you see our 24 books. We are having a special sale just these few days leading to that event. The entire 24-book set for $91 plus $9 shipping. So in total, including shipping, is $100 for our entire 24-book set. So that special PayPal button is on the page right now, and actually today and into early tomorrow morning, but today for people listening to the broadcast, and some people will listen early in the morning when they hear the archive, is the last day for that particular sale. The PayPal button is on the page, so you'll see it, and you can order the entire 24-book set for $91 plus $9 shipping, so $100. So that's a way for us to increase, cover the expenses, but also when we have our presentation on Saturday, just like all of our presentations wherever we go around the country, we never charge an admissions fee for our people to come hear our presentations, lectures, workshops, trainings, and so forth. We do not charge a speakers to organizers, and we also give away a free copy of one of our books to everyone who attends. We have given away over 1,100 books to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people at our different presentations over the past year and a half plus. And we're going to keep that program going. That's part of our approach to disseminating information. So we're going to be giving away a free copy of our book, Kemet Hina Ntoro, The Black Nation and Divinity, this Saturday as well. So in order to help cover that expense as well as the venue expense and everything else for the free event, this sale allows us to assist in that process. So if you would like to take advantage of that special sale, the entire 24 set for $100, which includes shipping, you can hit that special PayPal button on our publications page. And then, of course, we also have just our regular books that range between $8 and $11. You can purchase one or more. Any purchase or contribution donation assists us in our work. So tonight's broadcast, as we said, is a special edition of ODWIRA, purification. As we said, ODWIRA means purification. It also means to celebrate the ceremony of purification in the language of ancient Kemet. In the Akan language, the exact same term, ODWIRA, means purification. It also means to celebrate a ceremony of purification. In fact, the new year in the Akan tradition by millions of Akanfo is called ODWIRA, which means purification. We celebrate our 7-day New Year celebration, our ODWIRA celebration, which in the Western Hemisphere within Abibiman, the Akwamu Nation in North America, we call it Obrajira Nananom Som, but it's the ODWIRA New Year celebration purification. It is celebrated between September 16th and the 22nd, or September 17th through the 23rd, depending on the year. The last day of the celebration is either September 22nd or September 23rd, which is the first full day of the Atem Atemet equinox, the so-called autumn equinox or fall equinox, the balancing point of the year, the end of the warm cycle, and the beginning of the conception, the seeding cycle. This is our New Year celebration called ODWIRA. So ODWIRA means purification, and we want to deal with purification tonight. AKUMA DAN, domestic abuse neutralization within Abibiman, within the Black nation. AKUMA DAN is a process that we established rooted in our ancestral religious culture and values. We established AKUMA DAN around the time we established AKUMA SA process, which is a body of knowledge inclusive of workshops, a workshop and training, but also a ritual method called the KUM method, which is an acronym, KUUM. The AKUMA SA is the substance abuse abstinence within the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit community. And we show our method, ritual method of overcoming substance abuse addiction. Through ancestral religious practice, our people have been able to overcome addictions to cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, and other drugs. We established that process 10 years ago in 96, 12,996, so-called Gregorian calendar date, 1996. Not long after that, we established our AKUMA DAN process, domestic abuse neutralization. When you go to the AKUMA DAN page on our website, you will see the description of that process. You will also see the link to the KUM method, the ritual method to address domestic abuse and achieve that abuse neutralization. The AKUMA DAN process, as we show on our page, and we established this in around 12,997 so-called, it would be 13,007, and the previous 13,006, so-called 2006, and that was AKUMA SA. 13,007, so-called 2007, we established AKUMA DAN. It deals with the nature of domestic abuse in the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African Black community, a new form of enslavement. The perpetuation and conditioned acceptance of various forms of domestic abuse, including physical, sexual, verbal, spiritual, psychological, cultural, etc., as the promotion of intramural warfare within the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African community. The identity of the pseudo-spiritual, pseudo-cultural perpetrator of domestic abuse as a true enemy of all Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit Africans, black people. The pathway to domestic abuse neutralization utilizing tools in our Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African ancestral culture. The reason we call the program AKUMA DAN, AKUMA or AKUMA means X. In the tree language of the Akan, Aku also means X. In the Medusa, the hieroglyphs of ancient Kemet, the language of ancient Kemet. There's a ebe or a proverb in the Akan tradition. There is no tree that cannot be cut down with an axe. No matter how tall or strong or wide the tree is, it may appear to be a humongous, enormous obstacle, but there is no tree that cannot be cut down with an axe. Akuma shows us that there is no problem Afuraitkaitnit Africans, black people, cannot solve. It matters not how large an obstacle appears to be, we have the capacity to remove it. We have the capacity to cut down anything that stands in the way of proper growth, development, and means dwelling place. In the language of connect, as well as the language. That also means to cut into pieces, split, and also to change or transform in the tree language of the Akan. Domestic abuse is a great obstacle to the proper growth, development, and internal security of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit Africans, black people. Dining places, dine, should only be sanctuaries of productive relations. If abuse is committed within your domestic relationships, the violator is the enemy who deserves to suffer to fully, and is also one from whom you must split. Dine means to cut into pieces, to split, and of course, akuma means an axe. You must utilize your dine, your spirit's capacity in the form of akuma, the axe, to fully defend yourself and to also cut, sever the relationship in order to remove this obstacle. In that manner, you stand and way to your highest aspiration. So we utilize that AKUMA DAN also as an acronym. But the key here is what it's dealing with, the nature of domestic abuse in our community as a new form of enslavement, passed on by the whites now during enslavement. It's not part of our culture to abuse women, children, our people. That's not part of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit culture. Some people will say they come in contact with quote-unquote Africans from the continent, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit from the continent, and they're domineering over their women. But when you look behind what's taking place, they're imitating the behavior of their enemies, their oppressors, and take that mindset just like some of our people have here. When you look at those people who began to embrace Islam and Christianity here in the Western Hemisphere as well as on the continent, that's when you begin to see manifestations and the perpetuation and of domestic abuse as part of a normal way of life, and they've woven that into the fabric of the culture. But when you look at the traditional culture, that's never been part of the traditional culture. When you embrace a fake religion, a pseudo-religion with a faggot, dissexual, homosexual, fake God like Yahweh or Allah or Jesus, Yeshua, Isa, and so forth, these fictional, faggot, dissexual, homosexual, perverted pseudo-deities, when you embrace that imbalance, you're embracing fictional white male superiority and the inferiority of the female. The inferiority of the female because of the disdain for the female. Because inherent within that domination is the desire of the white male who wish they were a woman because they want to operate in that way. That's why they promote dissexuality, homosexuality all over the world. That's why amongst the Greeks and the Romans and the Vandals and others, they will promote dissexual connection as the highest form of human interaction. And connection with the female is just something rudimentary that's necessary to procreate. These perverts, dissexuality, homosexuality is in the nature of the whites and their offspring. So, of course, when you embrace their culture, it's woven throughout their fake religions, even though on the surface they would pretend to be against that, but the whole fake religion is rooted in that. A male, dissexual, homosexual deity who's at the root, at the top of the hierarchy, and everything is subordinate. There's no female divinity in those fake religions. So that breeds this perversity. In the books, in the pseudo-holy books, the little fake holy books, the Bible, Quran, and so forth, they legislate torture, beating, abuse of the female. That's within their little fake holy books. You have silly Negroes who embrace Islam, for example, giving the steps by which that lead up to beating on a woman if she does not obey you. And first you try to reason with her, and then you remove certain things from her, and after a certain number of steps, then you can attack her or beat her or brutalize her. Silly clowns, perverts who embrace that fake religion, they uphold that. The same thing in the Bible. The various statutes in the Old Testament and so forth dealing with the same thing. Abuse of the female, rape of a female, then the punishment is you must marry the female. That totally denigrates the female. That's the nature of the whites and their offspring. And it's not just on the male side, because when the females would try to come into power, they promote white female superiority, which is insane, just like white male superiority is insane because the whites and their offspring are inferior. The white female wants to be dominant, so they promote white female superiority and the fake pseudo-white lesbian, the goddess, and all of this nonsense, and try to inferiorize the male and promote this notion that certain males will castrate themselves in honor of the great mother goddess and so forth, all of this perverted nonsense. When they try to get in charge, they will try to dominate. When the white males are in charge, they will seek to dominate. That is the pathology of the whites and their offspring. By nature, they are spirits of disorder. We embrace their fake religions and their faggot deities and dyke pseudo-deities, then we embrace that nonsense and we seek to inferiorize those of the opposite sex as well as inferiorize anybody who is not embracing the fake culture that we have embraced. Just like the whites and their offspring seek to impose their fake religion through force in the world, just like cancer cells seek to consume and destroy every healthy cell in their path until they are eradicated. When we embrace that because we were enslaved, forced into enslavement as prisoners of war in the Western Hemisphere, then our people fall into that kind of culture. Whether you fully embrace on the surface Christianity or Islam and so forth on the surface, or even if you do not embrace it on the surface, but you're raised in America, raised in this culture, if you have not made a conscious, deliberate effort to reject the way of a life, the culture that permeates America, separate from that and transform your approach to every aspect of life and return to an ancestral view and view of life as it really is. You have made that conscious, deliberate effort by default and by quote-unquote osmosis, you are operating within this culture. And the ideas and your view of the world is shaped by this perverse culture that you have been raised in and that has been reinforced within you by the media, by schools, by pseudo-religious organizations, by television and radio and music and everything else. This is why we talk about the nature of domestic abuse in the Afuraitkaitnit community. Because when we are torturing our own people, we are enslaving our own people, and who benefits? The women and offspring who are still in control. the perpetuation and conditioned acceptance of various forms of domestic abuse, including physical, sexual, spiritual, cultural, etc., as the promotion of intramural warfare within the Afuraitkaitnit community. Of course, the whites and offspring promote their fake religions because they know that will disrupt and rend the fabric of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit cultural and society. When that fabric is rent, then we destroy one another. They are promoting warfare or internecine warfare within us. As long as we're self-destructing, they stay in control. When we engage in ordered behavior, the divine forces of law and balance, female, of divine hate. So we're dealing with the expansive and contractive poles of divine order. We embrace order through divine law, we reject order through divine, and execute that divine, eradicating our enemies. Then that's the end of white rule. So they have to perpetuate the fake culture. And when we do not embrace our ancestral culture, by default operating within the white culture, that's the perpetuation, conditioned acceptance of these various forms of domestic abuse. That's the intramural warfare that results from this programmed acceptance, conditioned acceptance, and perpetuation. Once we embrace that, then the identity of these pseudo-conscious, pseudo-spiritual, pseudo-cultural perpetrators of domestic abuse, hiding behind culture and revolution and so forth and spirituality, but then they're predators. Those who claim to know about traditional culture and ma'at and balance and revolution and building in the community, yet behind the scenes, they're perpetuating domestic abuse. They have become the enemy. We have the ebe, the proverb, that is part of our ancestral New Year's celebration. Abarofo ye achiwadiefo, na achiwadiefo, na ye abarofo. That means all of the whites and their offspring, abarofo, are achiwadiefo, divinely hated, divinely of disorder, without exception, who deserve to be exterminated. All of the whites and their offspring who exist, all of them who have ever existed, all of them who ever will exist until we make them extinct without exception. They incarnate as spirits of disorder without exception. Just like cancerous cells are cancerous cells, and the only solution for them is extermination without exception. There's no reparation. It's extermination. That is the solution. There's no exception to that reality. Those who become spirits of disorder, the whites and their offspring are incarnate as that. That means white Americans, white Europeans, white Hispanics, white Latinos, white pseudo-Native Americans who are just aliens who invaded this hemisphere and came in contact with the original black inhabitants. So these pseudo-Native Americans are not native anywhere. They are criminal white Asians who invaded from Siberia. They're not native to anything. White pseudo-Native Americans, white Asians, white Arabs, white Hindus, all non-black people are aborofo, the whites and their offspring. And they are achiwadiefo, spirits of disorder, divinely hated. Chi means to hate, divine hate. They are achiwadiefo, spirits of disorder. Aborofo ye achiwadiefo. All of the whites and their offspring are achiwadiefo. They incarnated spirits of disorder, are divinely hated and be exterminated. That is the ultimate solution. The second part of the ebe, na achiwadiefo mina inye aborofo. However, all achiwadiefo spirits of disorder are not white. That means all whites and their offspring, meaning all non-black people on earth are spirits of disorder and are our absolute enemies. Then you also have a small percentage of our own people who have become Ashibadiefos themselves. The Krava, the soul, the divine consciousness is separated from them because of their repulsive behavior consistently. Now they are spirits of disorder, spirits without a Krava, a Ka, a Kaet. They have become the whites and their offspring, divinely hated, spirits of disorder, criminal entities operating through black bodies. The only solution for them is extermination, eradication. They are no longer our people. They are our enemies. They are part of the white community. There's no forgiveness. It does not exist. They are our enemies that deserve extermination. So we deal with the pathway to domestic abuse neutralization, utilizing tools inherent within our Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit African ancestral culture. When we talk about the perpetuation and conditioned acceptance of domestic abuse, that goes in two ways. On one hand, embracing the white culture, and we talked about that, and then we embrace self-destructive activity, whether it's drug use or embracing, worshiping white deities, sexuality, homosexuality, all of these different things are self-destructive. And we're perpetuating that as long as we're embracing that false culture. The same thing with domestic abuse. The whites and our offspring force that fake culture on us, and then we perpetuate it because we accept it. But when we accept it, we also accept their values. And when we accept their values, that includes the protection of criminals. You notice the whites and their offspring seek to protect criminals. Child molesters are protected. They may go to prison, but they're given therapy, they're released into the community. They may have a minor sex offender and so forth, but they're given therapy, they're given a quote-unquote second chance. That's the nature of the whites and their offspring. In our community, child molesters are executed on the spot. They do not deserve a second chance. They deserve to be exterminated, tortured and exterminated for all the community to see. The whites and their offspring want the child molesters to return to the community. They would like to perpetuate the destructive nature of the actions and how it destroys families, promote the destruction of the family, so they give them a pass and allow them eventually to return to the community. That means every single year, every single month, some child molesters are released from prison who have been there for months or years. But when you gather it all up accumulatively, every single month, even every day, every week, somewhere, somehow, in some community, child molesters are released from prisons. The same is true of rapists and some murderers. The whites give them a second chance because they would like to release murderers and rapists and child molesters into the community so that they can continue to destroy the community, destroy the families, terrorize the families, and then seek to jail you if you move against them. That's their culture. So when we talk about the perpetuation and conditioned acceptance of various forms of domestic abuse, that includes accepting the values of white culture. You embrace their values and talk about being a quote-unquote forgiving Christian, and even though somebody molested you in the past, you're supposed to turn around and forgive them. That's white culture. It's not based in reality. It's not based on anything that has to do with spirituality. The laws of Ma'ah and Ma'ah, male and female forces of divine law and balance, is when you confront this molester, they are to be executed, exterminated. That's divine law. That's supported by the great mother and great father supreme being, by the Abosom, the Orisha, the Vodou, by the Nsamanfo, Nananom Nsamanfo, the deities and ancestral spirits. That's the only remedy. If you reject the ancestral mandate and you seek to quote unquote forgive, you've just embraced white culture. And white culture was encoded within you so that we would accept our own self-destruction. When you allow the criminals back into the society who were torturing and beating the women, molesting the children, murdering, raping, and so forth, all these various expressions of disorder, you accept them back in the community, and that creates disorder in the community on every level. Programmed acceptance, perpetuation and conditioned acceptance. But when we return to our ancestral values, we have different remedies. We have proper remedies. We no longer accept domestic abuse. We confront the abusers and exterminate the abusers from within the community. There are different means by which they are exterminated. The obvious means is through physical confrontation, metal armaments, weaponry, exterminating the abusers on the spot. But then we also have other forms. Aduto. The term aduto in Akan means poison. Every Afurani male, every Afuraitkaitnit female growing up learns the proper medicinal use of plant life and mineral life for basic healing properties. Most people, when they have an illness, they take care of it themselves. They learn that from their parents and grandparents, how to use plant life and mineral life to heal themselves of basic illnesses. When you grow up and have a family and your children become sick, 99% of the time, you take care of the illness within the home. You learn that from your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and so forth. It's a very rare occasion that you have to take your child to the emergency room, to the doctor, and so forth, for an illness. 99% of the time, the home remedies are something that you've learned, that you've incorporated into your lifestyle, and you have that understanding of how to heal these illnesses or diseases. That's part of our ancestral religious practice. Also part of our ancestral religious practice is not only the use of home remedies, but the use of home poisons, aduto. We understand offensive medicine and defensive medicine. Every Afuraitkaitnit female growing up learns the use of home remedies to heal, the use of home poison to kill. That's part of our religion, whether it's Hoodoo, the Akan religion, Juju, Yoruba religion, Voodoo, Fon and Ebe religion here in North America, in the Western Hemisphere, or on the continent. We have always understood the use of offensive and defensive medicine. So whether we attack and kill our enemies with metal armaments or weaponry, we utilize our own bare hands, or we utilize aduto, poison, destroy and eradicate our enemies. That is part of our ancestral religion that we learn from the time we are children, that is accepted and supported in the community, by all in the community. So when the abuser abuses the female, people in the community find out that the abuser has been abusing the female, and then the following morning, the abuser, quote unquote, wakes up dead. Everybody accepts that result, and they honor the result, because the abuser was a criminal and a spirit of disorder, and they have a dishonorable, quote unquote, burial. They are cast aside and never spoken of again because they were criminals. That's supported by the Abosom, supported by the Nsamanfo, the deities and ancestral spirits, supported by Nyamewa and Nyame, the great mother and great father, supreme being. That has always been our culture, our religion. That is our culture and religion now. And we are returning and have returned to our ancestral values rooted in that ancestral religious practice. Once people become spirits of disorder and they are criminal rapists, torturers, murderers, abusers, molesters, domestic abusers in general, they become the enemy. They are no different than the whites and their offspring. They deserve extermination. Then there's a third piece, a third approach that leads to that extermination. We're going to do an entire broadcast just on aduto, poison. did address that third piece with regard to extermination in a post on Facebook. We'll go through that quickly. And then we're going to go through the specific piece that we did with regard to the video that we released addressing this topic. We did a post on Facebook where we showed Apuat. We showed the wolves. And it says, throw them to the dogs. This phrase originally, throw them to the wolves, is an ancient practice. An enemy found within your clan, your ranks executed. This can be a summary execution or a torturous execution, which included literally throwing the individual in the midst of wolves to be ripped apart. This is a fitting remedy for those within our clans, our ranks, who engage in murder, torture, molestation, and other atrocities of and against our own people. Such individuals are no longer redeemable. They have become one of the Achiwadye folk, spirits of disorder, the whites and their offspring. They are just like the whites and their offspring. Just as some healthy cells, as we said, become cancerous and only seek to consume and destroy the other healthy cells until they are eradicated, so do some within our clans, our ranks become cancerous. They move to consume and destroy the healthy clan members, the cells, unless and until they are eradicated. The summary execution and torturous execution as an ancestral code practice continues for thousands of years up until today. The torturous execution manifests in the sentiment, throw them to the dogs, includes throwing those who have become your enemy to your enemy. So a summary execution is you executing somebody on the spot, whether it's with metal weaponry, with your own bare hands, with other weaponry, or through aduto, through poison, through the practice of hoodoo, juju, voodoo, and so forth. We're not talking about chemicals, plant life, mineral life. Some people are allergic to certain kinds of mushrooms. Certain mushrooms are poisonous, some mushrooms are not poisonous. Some people have other allergens. They can eat something and have an allergic reaction that leads to their death. Some people, there are different combinations of plant life and mineral life that are naturally occurring. And everybody eats every day, everybody drinks every day. Some people smoke, some people breathe. Things can be made useful. Aduto. And every Afurakani male, every Afuraitkaitnit female in our traditional culture has that basic fundamental knowledge to exercise that power of use of aduto. That's part of summary execution. But then the torturous execution, throw them to the dogs. That includes throwing those who have become your enemy to your enemy. We use the example. If someone was fighting in Afghanistan, the platoon, and the platoon members plotted to rob and kill another platoon member, and you can get this piece on our Facebook page. They plotted to rob and kill a fellow platoon member. Once exposed, they would be summarily executed. They are sometimes subjected to torturous execution. In other words, thrown to the dogs, meaning dropped off in the territory of the Afghani opponents who could not wait to torture and kill an occupier of their country. The platoon members have thrown the enemy to the enemy for torturous execution. Even when we have become conditioned and engaged in degenerate behavior, including joining gangs in North America, in the inner cities, and becoming engaged in criminal behavior, the same ancient principle is still upheld. We still have a consciousness of this ancient principle of either summary execution or torturous execution. Therefore, if a fellow gang member violated a family member, rape, torture, murder, Fellow gang members now see him as the enemy. Some would summarily execute the individual, gun him down, stab him in the throat and so forth, set him on fire, whatever it is. Some would, quote unquote, throw him to the dogs, bind him up and leave him in a rival gang's territory to be tortured and then killed. The same sentiment is held within those of our community who call the police. Someone with our community rapes, murders, molests, tortures family members. If we do not have our own communal policing apparatus in place, wherein we would simply find the individual and kill the individual through summary execution, the other option is torturous execution. Throw them to the dogs. In this case, throw them to the pigs. The rapist, murderer, molester is no longer a part of the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit community, the African Black community. The rapist, murderer, molester, abuser is now a part of the white community. The individual is now a spirit of disorder. Thus, to be tortured and killed by the white community is a fitting option for this new white individual. They have become a new white. They're part of their community now. A domestic abuser is part of the white community now. So when the white community tortures and kills and guns down an abuser, that's one of their people now. They're no longer one of our people. Our Nsamako, our ancestresses and ancestors have separated themselves, severed them from, and we have severed them when we're intelligent. They're no longer part of our community, physical or ancestral. This notion of quote-unquote stop snitching is a ridiculous quote-unquote campaign, actually started by the whites and their offspring to keep their black agents in the black community protected so that they will continue to destroy our people with drugs, murder, torture, rape, molestation. All gangs, drug leaders, etc., who operate within the community are regulated by the whites and their offspring. The municipal, state, and federal government and corporations, white corporations, as well as the white Arab, Hindu, white Hispanic, and Asian local business owners supply gang leaders with all of the guns, drugs, etc. that they need. They support the gun sales, drug sales, and so forth. Everybody in the black community, in the inner cities, we all know that the Arabs, the Asians, the Hindus, the white Hispanics, as well as the white European American crackers, they all work together to supply the guns and the drugs. Everything we need to be self-destructive. They support the gun sales, drug sales periodically. They send their police out to quote-unquote bust a gang leader or drug kingpin. It could appear to the black community that the police are on the job, that the police, the government, and corporations are on the side as the gangs and the drug dealers. They then place another gang leader or kingpin in position. They prop him up for a few years just as they prop up dictators in Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit nations for a number of years. Once these dictators have destroyed the lives of the people for a decade or more, the whites who prop them up organize a coup to depose them and then prop up a successor. They do the same thing in our communities with drug leaders, drug dealers, drug quote-unquote kingpins, gang leaders, and so forth. They are supported by the police. Some of them foolishly believe that they have the police on the payroll. They will tell their subordinates, yeah, we got the cops on our payroll, but really the cops have you on their payroll. They prop you up, then they set you up, they depose you, jail you, or kill you, and then prop up another drug kingpin, another gang leader for a few more years to destroy the community. We must understand that Maranechi, divine law, love, and divine hate are the two expansive and contractive poles of divine order governed by the deity Ma and Ma'at. Male and female deities of divine law or love and Heru, Bedesi, and Sekhmet. Male and female forces, deities of divine hate. When we reincorporate into our consciousness the reality of the divinity of law and love and the divinity of hate, we recognize that all of the whites in our offspring, all non-black people, incarnated spirits of disorder, and are our enemies without exception, we also recognize that those within our clans, within our ranks, who become cancerous are agents of whites and their offspring because they have become them. They are our enemies as well. As we reconstruct Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit as an Oman, the Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit nation, the black nation as an Oman, as a nation rooted in divine order and engaged with 7 principal values of Aman Sesu nation building, restoration, we understand that the establishment of a military structure, the 3rd principal value, while establishing sound systems of governance and jurisprudence, is the 5th principal value. Where those systems have been reconstituted, the summary execution of our enemies is supported. They are executed by people within the community through metal armaments, weaponry, through aduto, poison. Where those systems have been reconstituted, that's taken place. Where those a sound system of governance and jurisprudence within our own communities that we control, ancestrally grounded, where those systems have not yet taken root, as individuals all over the country are still in the process of reawakening. So many places, our people are living in areas where they have reestablished themselves and reformed themselves, dealing with ancestral moral reversion, transforming their lives, transforming the outview or outlook and the worldview of their children, purifying themselves and so forth. So they may be isolated in a city, you may be isolated in a specific region, a village, town, where other people are not engaged in the same thing yet. So those structures are not in place. You don't have a communal military force to back you up when certain things come. So you can engage in that summary execution. You have not yet fully embraced your ancestral religious practice. You haven't learned enough. You haven't been reintroduced to the use of aduto, poison, dealing with offensive and defensive medicine, home remedies, meaning home medicine, home poisons. You haven't developed that yet, although you're learning that. You can engage in summary execution at that moment. So then the other option is torturous execution of the enemies within our clans, within our ranks. That is the other fitting option. It is an expression of divine hatred of the enemy within the ranks. That's why we say throw them to the dogs, throw them to the wolves. That's the remedy for the enemy. Throw them to the wolves, throw them to the dogs. Torturous execution. Now, when that's deal with that conditioned acceptance form of domestic abuse. When we accepted it because we embraced to protect and defend and give a second chance to domestic abusers and criminals, as opposed to executing them, then it's perpetuated. When we return to our ancestral moral values, then we seek that summary execution or torturous execution, because these are our enemies now. But then we have to, that's on the external side. We return to the culture externally. We can eradicate the clear and present danger, that predator within the community, whether they're a predator and present themselves as a predator, or they're a predator, a sheep in wolf clothing, pretending to be a culturalist, a spiritualist, a revolutionary, and so forth, but they're really a criminal. The clear and present danger is neutralized, is eradicated through summary execution or torturous execution. They are killed. That's external. That's part of that process. But then you have to deal with the conditioned acceptance or perpetuation of these ideals that have been internalized. Because if you purify yourself internally, you may get rid of one of these criminals, But if you have the same mindset that led you to embrace one of these criminals and look beyond the signs and seek to find a way to accept certain things, even though deep down inside you know it's something wrong, then you end up connecting with yet another criminal. So we have to deal with the pathway to domestic abuse neutralization, utilizing tools inherent within our Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit ancestral culture. That's where our AKUM method, AKUM ritual method, comes into play. And when you can see the page on our website, we deal with that AKUM ritual method to achieve domestic abuse neutralization based on the same ritual method to overcome substance abuse addiction. Of course, our people term the language of the Akan. It means to kill, to cut off, to silence. The AKUM method used in concert with your Nkomre, your ancestral shrine, is a ritual means to kill, cut off, silence, neutralize the misguided, conditioned emotions and disordered spirits that lead to and feed the programmed acceptance of various forms of domestic abuse and their repercussions. The only way you can have a programmed acceptance of various forms of domestic abuse is to embrace the culture of the whites and their look beyond what's real and begin to make excuses and rationalize why you're embracing this thing that's out of harmony with order. The only way you can do that is when you become disaligned fundamentally from your own Akra, the deity dwelling in the head region. When we ancestral religious practice, the ritual method realign your sum with your crowd that dwells in the head region. Any disalignment from the divinity that's constantly, that force in your head that's constantly pulling you towards thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in harmony with divine order, from that disorder in your life, it can lead to substance abuse, addiction, and so forth, because now you're susceptible to suggestions and conditionings from other individuals, and you seek to embrace those false ideals and rationalize them, obeying what the force in your head is pulling you towards. You're rejecting that. It's pulling you in one direction. You're going in the other direction and making excuses for it. When you engage that process, you're not being pulled by the deity, the divinity that's pulling you in your head region. You're rejecting that pull and going for the brainwashed person in your life or the criminals in this society and make excuses for embracing that white culture. The key is realigning with the deity that dwells in the head region, because within that force is your spirit's brain. Just like you have a body and you have a smaller body in the head region, which is the brain that regulates all of the functions of the organs and systems in the body. You have a spirit body, and in the head region of your spirit is a force, which is the spirit's brain, is the Ka. The Ka is the soul, the divine consciousness, the male deity if you're male, a female divinity if you're female, a deity you communicate with, and encoded within that divinity is your divine function you are to execute in the world. When you align with that force, your thoughts, intentions, and actions are in harmony with order. When you go against the pull in your head from that divinity, then you fall into disorder and come in contact with all kinds of calamities and so forth. So the key to neutralizing the programmed acceptance of domestic abuse, meaning conditioned emotions. You've gone through things, you condition yourself, you eradicated those false beliefs, those false ideals. You haven't exterminated those and removed them from your spirit. You allow them to remain, and then they control you. Disordered spirits, spirits of deceased relatives who were child, or just ignorant individuals who died. Instead of listening to your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, great-grandmothers, great-grandfathers of character, instead of being guided by them, you're being guided by those criminal deceased who are relatives or some who are non-relatives. And they lead you towards substance abuse addiction, trying to influence. You have the overwhelming urges to try it. And then you try it. And you say, something told me not to do it, but I felt this strong urge to do it. And you went ahead and obeyed. If you're practicing ancestral religious culture, you recognize that every time you have an overwhelming urge to engage in criminal behavior, you know instantaneously that's not coming from your cross, not coming from your soul. because your Ka only directs you towards ordered thoughts, intentions, and actions. Anytime you have an overwhelming urge or idea to engage in criminality, it's either from a conditioning, because you've learned something from society and you internalized it and now it's resurfacing, or it's from a disembodied spirit of a relative or non-relative seeking to influence you, just like a homeless person trying to get you to engage in some criminal activity by them, and they try to get you to engage in something criminal. You just keep going because you know that's them speaking. You know it has nothing to do with you. But if that individual is deceased, they're just a spirit, homeless, hanging around the corner, and you walk by and you have this overwhelming urge to engage in criminality, you assume those thoughts are yours. And then you internalize them thinking there's something wrong with you, or maybe you should be engaging in that behavior. And if you try it, quote unquote, then you create problems for yourself. So the key to overcoming that programmed acceptance, those conditioned emotions, as well as those disorders that lead to and feed the programmed acceptance of various forms of domestic abuse, the way to break that cycle ritually, and the only way to break that cycle, is to realign your sunsum, your spirit, with your crop. Nothing can do that. Sitting around talking to a psychologist or a therapist is not going to help you realign your sunsum, your spirit, with your crop. You have to engage that ritual. You may sit around talking to a therapist for a while, for months or years or whatever it is, and at some point you get tired of hearing them say the same thing. You say, you know what, I'm just following them. You just got tired of talking to them, and finally you were worn down to the point where you said, I'm going to follow my own intuition from now on, meaning I'm going to start aligning my spirit with my Akuma and start following the pull of my Akuma to my head region instead of doing what I shouldn't have been doing. You just finally made a mature decision. But it really had nothing to do with the therapist who was talking to you for months or even years. They will pat themselves on the back and say you made a breakthrough. But in reality, they didn't help you to ritually align and invoke the deity in your head region so you can forge that bond once again. They didn't do that. They just wore you down with talking until you got tired and said, let me do what I knew I should have been doing the first time I came in here. You could have done that the first day. So we need to engage that process, and it's a ritual process in connection with your ancestral shrine. That is the only way to realign yourself and repel the desire to engage some individual that shows up, puts on a particular front and so forth. Your crowd will tell you early on, do not deal with this individual. In white culture, they tell you don't judge by its cover, give everybody a chance. They want you to accept criminality in your life, and when they start beating and torturing you, there's a white culture teaching because they want you to continue to suffer. White culture wants you to suffer. They want you to embrace criminality, not fight against it on an individual level as well as on a communal level. For us, they want us to, for their torture, enslavement, everything else, false incarceration. But then when we rise up, take up arms and start killing them, they say, oh no, it's evil and wrong. You don't want to do that. You just want to stand for justice and say, hands up, don't shoot. That's white culture. They want you to continue to suffer. So as long as you're suffering, they're in control. When you embrace our culture, whether it's on a communal level, we don't say hands up, don't shoot. We arm ourselves, execute the cops who are killing our people. Like our brother Ma'aka did in Dallas. Our brother Satepin Raj cops within 10 days. That's real revolution, resolution. Powered by hoodoo, powered by ancestral religion. Both of them practice ancestral religion and were guided by ancestral religion to move on the cops and execute them. So, on a communal level, we're taught properly, differently than this white culture. When the crowd directs you to move, you move. On an individual level, when your crowd says no, don't deal with this individual. It doesn't matter if you just met them or just saw a picture of them. When your crowd says don't deal with them, you don't deal with them. When your nsamanfo, your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors direct you, don't deal with this individual. This individual is a criminal, an abuser. then you don't deal with them. You don't give them a chance. They don't deserve a chance. Child molesters try to groom the children so that they can have a chance. And when they torture and molest the children, they come back and try to have another chance by giving them gifts. They're always seeking another chance. Criminals don't deserve a first chance, a second chance, or a third chance, or any chance. So in our culture, when our crowd directs us no, then we embrace no. When you're not consistently engaged in aligning your sum, your spirit, with your cry on a regular basis through susu, which is a form of the term for meditation in Akan, susu or susuho, at the nkomre, at the shrine, and dealing with your cry on a regular basis through ritual practice, inclusive of pouring libation and engaging in shrine work and so forth. If you're not engaged in that on a regular basis, then you're not constantly accustomed to aligning your sum, being led by your cry. You're being accustomed to being led around by the ideas that are promoted in this white society, by the whites in their offspring, as well as through your friends, co-workers who are also brainwashed with this white culture and repeat foolish ideas in their own words that came from the white offspring. But when we're constantly engaged in ritual practice on a daily basis, engaged in some form of susu home meditation at the shrine for a certain number of minutes on a daily basis, we're constantly aligning ourselves with our crowd so we can repel these criminal individuals. We have that insight. The intuition is strong. So when the crowd says no, you reject them. When the Unsamampo say no, you reject them. You don't give them a chance. You don't give them a first chance or a second chance. If you find yourself in a relationship, you realize there's a problem, then you cut them off. They don't deserve an explanation. Your cross said you're not the person, it's over. Period. Don't deserve anything beyond that. Because your cross is letting you know it's a criminal. And they will let you understand that. So it's a ritual practice that must be engaged. That ritual practice, of course, as we've said, we have had on the website since 2007. And people have utilized that ritual practice to this programmed acceptance to kill, to cut off, to silence these disordered, misguided, conditioned emotions and those disordered spirits that normally try to plague the person, but you can repel them when you align with your craft. When you align with your Nananum Nsamanfo, your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors, then they help you to repel those perverse spirits, just like if some homeless person was trying to walk up on you and influence you, and then you had 30 family members come outside, then they're going to crush that criminal to death. The same thing when you have your Nsamanfo around you, these disordered little criminal spirits are repelled. When you align with your craft, these disordered, conditioned emotions, misguided programs that you've internalized over the course of years are disintegrated. And then you only follow what your crowd directs you to do, and they direct you away from a criminal abuser or potential criminal abuser, predator. No matter how revolutionary they talk or cultural or spiritual they talk, your crowd can see beyond them. And you follow that. So people have utilized this ritual method to overcome these programmed conditionings as well as these disorders so they free themselves from that cycle of falling back into these kinds of relationships. So on the external side, there's summary execution, torturous execution. On the internal side, you engage in ritual practice, the AKUMA method, to overcome internally that programmed acceptance towards falling into these kinds of negative cycles. You overcome that and break the cycle. Now the last piece we want to deal with, we did, of course, we released that video, Owuodi, Weary, Successor of the Moon, and it was dealing with domestic abuse in the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community. If you watch that video, it's on Facebook, so of course you can share it. There were a few images we wanted to touch on very quickly, and in the near future we'll do an entire breakdown of that entire video. The song in the background is Salon No's song called Weary. But then when we say Owuodi, the term in Akan for the star that is the successor of the moon, that is the star Afi, so-called Heteru, the term Wodi or Wodu and Wodi in ancient Kemet means exhausted, weary, motionless, but it also means with a different determinative, great, powerful, the capacity to overcome. The first image we show is of Okunfo Corinne, so-called Corinne Day, that sister who was murdered by the cops in Maryland. They sent the SWAT team. She was armed. They killed her with her son in her arms and so forth. The spirit of an Okunfo, the spirit of a warrioress, and that young spirit, she was murdered on Joada, the day of Nana Ajua, the day of Aset. And as we said in the video we did for her, she's now young ancestress, and her spirit is guiding our people and guiding specific people coming massacre. We show her first, and when you understand who she is, what took place with her, you understand why she's included for the very first image in the video. And we show the Medutu for the term Urde or Urdu, which means weary or exhausted. There's an image that says if you're dissing the sisters, you ain't fighting the power. So you have these criminal individuals claiming to be warriors and warrioresses and spiritualists and cultists and everything else, and behind the scenes they are predators, they are criminals. We show statistics of African Americans, Afuraitkaitnit people in America. Women suffer deadly violence from family members at rates higher than other racial groups. 22 times the rate intimate partner violence, 22 times the rate of women of other races. Our people are being tortured. Our women are being tortured by criminal predators who are no longer part of the Afuraitkaitnit community. They deserve summary execution, torturous execution, whether it's through metal armaments or through aduto, that defensive medicine, that poison. The next image we show of the great mother Abosom, great mother goddess Nut. Nut is the spiritual force that's operating through the atmosphere. Then, of course, she's bent over the male divinity Geb, who's the crust of the earth. So Geb and Nut, the earth and sky, they give birth to Alsar, Alset, Set, and Nebuchadnezzar. As we said earlier, Geb is the crust of the earth. He is not the earth itself. The earth itself is dominated and animated by two female earth divinities, Asase Afu and Asase they're called Nakan, Asase Nebetepet and Asase Nebetpet, as they're called in ancient Kemet, the two Asase divinities, earth mother divinities. Their husbands are Atem and Kepra, Oduman Kuman, Tradrian Pong and Akan. So we have the same divinity. Nut. So those, they govern the earth itself as an entity. Geb is just dealing with the crust of the earth. Of course, you have upper crust, lower crust, upper mantle, lower mantle, core, inner core, inner core, inner core, and so forth, the different layers of earth. But the planet in and of itself, governed by the two twin female divinities, Asase Afur and Asase Ya, called Asase Nebetepet and Asase Nebetpet in ancient Kemet. But the atmosphere that's surrounding the earth is animated by the female divinity, Nut. The mother, she's a mother divinity, the mother of Alsar, Alset, Set, and Nebuchadnezzar. Everything within the atmosphere, the oxygen within the atmosphere, the moisture within the atmosphere, and so forth, the sunlight that permeates the atmosphere and is dispensed through the atmosphere for us, fed by this great mother, Nut. We're dependent on her for our very existence, moment to moment to moment. She is a mother divinity. She is not the great mother divinity, even though she's bent over in the sky and you can see stars in her belly. You look in the sky, the night sky or the newt sky, you see the stars in the dark blue or black body. She is the atmosphere surrounding the planet. But her mother is Tefnut. Shu and Tefnut give birth to Geb and Nut. So the mother of Nut, Nut is not the great mother goddess. She is a mother goddess, but not the great mother Ntoro. Her mother is Tefnut. Shu and Tefnut were born of Atem and Asase Nebetetepet, one of the Asase earth mother divinities. The deity Atem is what Asase Nebetetepet give birth to Shu and Tefnut. Shu and Tefnut give birth to Geb and Nut. And Geb and Nut give birth to Asar, Aset, Set, and Nebetet. So Nut's mother is Tefnut. Nut's grandmother is Asase or Usaset, but sometimes they'll spell her name in the rendering of her name in ancient Kemet, Asase Nebetetepet. But the mother of Asase Nebetetepet is Ra'et, and the father is Ra, the creator and creatress. So Nut's mother is Tefnut, her grandmother is Asase Nebetetepet, her great-grandmother is Ra'et. But the mother of Ra and Ra'et, the creator and creatress, is Nun and Nonet. So her great-great-grandmother is Nonet. But the mother of Nonet is Amenet, the supreme being. And Amen is the great father, supreme being. So her great-great-great-grandmother is Amenet. So Nut is not the great mother goddess. She has a mother, Tefnut. She has a grandmother, Asase Nebetetepet. She has a great-grandmother, Ra'et. She has a great-great-grandmother, Nonet. She has a great-great-great-grandmother, Amenet, sometimes called Amenet Ra'et. So we want to show that blood circle, that lineage, because some people walk around saying, well, the Africans depicted God as a woman, and she was the great mother Nut, and she had the stars in her belly. Not even close to being the great mother goddess. She has a great-great-great-grandmother who was Amenet. And Amenet is the female great supreme divinity, and Amen is the male divinity, and they work together as the supreme being, as two halves of the divine whole. So all of this, the black woman is God, idiocy, that's clown nonsense, originated by the whites and their offspring, and in blackface repeated by some of our people. White lesbians putting forward that it was the great mother goddess, the white goddess, who gave birth to all of the gods, but she was the original by herself. White spiritists and theosophists in the late 19th century, so-called, and early 20th and so forth, began perpetuating this lesbian doctrine. And then brainwashed blacks who were involved in the pseudo-occult, pseudo-Masonic organizations and pseudo-spiritual organizations and so forth, and later on mixing quote-unquote Hermetic so-called teachings with the pseudo-occult and so forth, and studying that nonsense and studying Hinduism as well, started incorporating that false doctrine into what they taught and started saying this came from just as an answer. Never been true at all. They don't know the lineage of going back through Asase Nebetetepet because they don't know who she is, as well as Ra'et and Nonet and the great mother Amenet. So, but we show Nut because she's that great mother, the atmosphere surrounding us, bathing us in that energy, oxygen, moisture, the distance of the sunlight that's permeating and dispensed and dispersed throughout the atmosphere, and for us so we can take it in without being, killed by harmful ultraviolet rays and so forth. Nut is governing all that. We're totally dependent upon her. We show her after we show Koren, Queen Koren, Okumpo Koren, Queen Koren Gain, Okumpo Koren. We show the Medutu talking about weary, but it's also a precursor to power. When we overcome, we show the sister Amma with her baby, but then we also show that graphic. If you are dissing the sisters, you're not fighting the power. We show the information about how our sisters are 22 times as likely to be abused in intimate partner relationships and so forth. But then we show the great the great mother Nut, because she is the one who begins to bring that healing. You baby first takes their first breath and the baby is held up into the sky and they take in their first breath, they're taking in that energy of the great Mother Nut, bathed in that energy. Then we show her hands close up, because when you see her hands close up, you see that wavy, it's not just a wavy water line, it's a wavy line of electromagnetic energy, spiritual power, floating above both of her palms, because within the palms of her, she has the capacity to heal and bring healing. And that's why the next image within the video are the sisters in a circle prostrate, because they're receiving that healing from the great Mother Nut to overcome this programmed acceptance. We're engaged in ritual practice now. The next image you see is the great Mother Nut in her sycamore tree. She's pouring out libation to the individual, the sister, and the sister is receiving the libation from the great Mother Nut, but then her Ba, the divine living energy of the sister, is there receiving that dispensation of energy as well. There's a water line coming out of the libation pot. There's also a line of energy, electromagnetic and spiritual power that they're receiving from the great Mother Nut, so they can drink it in and empower themselves. In the track, when Solange is singing about a man is only a man, he's only flesh and blood, just like you are, then we show the great Mother Sojourner Truth. She was a great abolitionist, but she also said, ain't I a woman? A man is a man, he's flesh and blood, just like you are. A predator is not superior to you. And that's why we show in the next slide, Mary Fields, also called Black Mary, also called Stagecoach Mary. During the 19th century, she was out in the West. You see her with her rifle. She was the first Afuraitkaitnit woman in America to be take a route for the post office back then, and she was going through the Wild West, so to speak. She was always armed with her shotgun and her revolvers. She was shooting and fighting men older than her, bigger than her, younger than her, and so forth, and was known to knock them out, shoot at them, and so forth. They feared her. There was a story about her stagecoach in the middle of the night being attacked by a pack of wolves, and they attacked the horses. The stagecoach flipped over, and she spent the night. She had a lamp in one hand, she had a shotgun in the other hand, and she used the shotgun and the revolvers to fend off the wolves. And then when the sun rose, she flipped her cart back over and was able to make it back to her residence. That's why she's shown with that shotgun, and she's known to pick up the gun at any moment. Anybody comes at her, blowing their brains out. Then we show another sister, a contemporary sister, holding that gun as well. And then, of course, the next slide, if you want to eradicate the abuse, you eradicate the abuser. So we show a machete. We're talking about summary execution, one of the means of weaponry used for summary execution. And then, of course, we show the image that's part of our Odumfo, divine executioners, and the eradication of the enemy within the ranks. We did that broadcast, the 7th part of our ODWIRA series, and we show 2 images. One image is the body of the man laying on the ground, and the body is on fire. And the brother is holding a huge boulder, and he's about to throw the boulder on the head of the man that's already on fire. They already set the man on fire. A criminal from within the ranks. You see the person has a black body, and it's a black brother about to throw the boulder on top of the head of the black body. There was a criminal within the ranks. So they got together and set him on fire. And he's being burned alive. He's on fire, laying down, and part of his body is already charred. He's already dying. The brother has the big boulder, and he's about to throw the boulder and end it for good, crush his head. That's divine execution, summary execution of the enemy. And the image next to that is a divination container, showing that the abosom and insamampo support the summary execution of the enemy in the ranks. That has always been part of our culture, including up until today, when we even just have an instinct with regards to the culture. Somebody finds out that somebody's torturing somebody, beating on their sister, beating on their mother. Somebody gets strapped, goes to blow his brains out. Somebody's molesting a child. They go to the house with bats, beat the nigga's brains out, beat him to death. We've always done that until recently, but it still happens in certain occasions where people still have that strong understanding of divine order. Summary execution, but then some people opt for that torturous execution, throw them to the dogs. In the next section of the video, we show that great Mother Marie Laveau, great queen of voodoo in Louisiana, in New Orleans. That part of the song, they say, be leery of your place in the world. We show the next piece, which is the woman's face, whether it's talking about poverty or torture, those two major aspects of suffering that our sisters are living under. On one hand, constant torture from a so-called mate is terrorism. It's not just the attack at the specific moment and the pain of the attack of the moment, but everything that happens after the attack, from days to even weeks or maybe months until the next attack. It's terrorism all the way up to that point. Walking on eggshells, not knowing whether or not the next day or the next moment there's going to be another attack. That's constant tension, chronic tension. That's suffering on a moment-to-moment basis. So physical abuse, torture, domestic abuse is one major aspect of suffering that our sisters are dealing with. Then poverty is another major aspect of suffering that our people are dealing with. So we bring that to the fore. But then the next piece, we show the female Aboson Ma'at dealing with balance, bringing balance back into a situation. First, you want to align with that divine force of divine love. The male divinity is Ma'al, but the female divinity is Ma'at. Then we showed the sister Afia Asase Bretuo, who actually spoke at our Hoodoo Mind, Hoodoo Nation Festival, and she's holding the Osebo, the leopard, in her palm. That's the symbol of her ancestral Matra clan, her Abusia de Bretuo clan, showing that connection to restoring balance to life. The next image is Voodoo Queen Kalinda Laveau, and we did a presentation together in New Orleans back in September. She's holding serpent, engaged in a ritual practice in the Congo Square region, and you see that live serpent that she's holding. That's an animal totem as well. So in the song, when it's talking about taking back their glory or going back to their glory for the ancestral culture and the radiant energy of the ancestral totems that are being dealt with. Then we show the great mother Neat. Neat is another great mother divinity. We did a broadcast specifically on the great mother Neat, great mother divinity, where you have the divine energy within the black substance of space, Noon and Noonet, that inert vibratory frequency energy that that's the energy within the black substance. That's the primordial energy undergirding all things. When creation comes into being, and then you have water that permeates all of the physical body, but then the sky and everything else, water is the basis. 70+1% of the planet is water. The bodies of plant life, animal life, mineral life, and so forth, dominated by water. The water within your body, there's an energetic component within that. Mu and Muda, the male and female forces that animate water in creation. But the wave energy within the primordial water substance on the female side is Neat. On the male side is Kunwimu or Kunun. And she's dealing with the great shuttle energy. She's weaving the primordial energy, just like Kunun is. Just like you have a sperm cell and an ovum cell. The energy that powers the sperm cell is the Patriclan divinity. The energy that animates the ovum cell is the Matriclan divinity. There's the fluid that carries the sperm cell, the fluid that carries the ovum cell, and the primordial water fluid energy of the great mother Neat, and the primordial energy of Kunwimu, when they come together, those male and female divinities, the ones that fuse the sperm and ovum cells together, but the energy, the patriclan energy and the matriclan energy of those two deities is fused together neat. That's why she's a mother divinity. That amniotic water, the energetic component within that amniotic fluid that we are within, that's the mothering energy of the great mother Neat. And it's purificatory, and it's also rejuvenating, and it's also nourishing. And that's why we show her, because we purify ourselves so we can overcome these programmed conditionings and so forth. And then we show Ama Sankofa and Iya Ajua and Ama Sekhmet in the next slide. That was actually from our ODWIRA Fashe conference back in June, showing that purified woman, purified. And then the next piece, when we talk about the male, when we talk about Asar, part of the song is talking about a man's flesh and blood, for him to become the kind of Afurakani man that will balance out the Afuraitkaitnit woman. Just like Asar, God's sin was preserved. You see Anpu mummifying Asar. You see Asar connected with the ships of enslavement, the great black woman thrown in a coffin and thrown in the water and so forth by Set and his followers. The great black nation was placed in a coffin, so-called slave ships, and thrown in the water, only to be scattered and separated, but later reconstituted. You see Anpu reconstituting the great black one, preparing him for resurrection. And once you have the resurrected man, the resurrected or the great black one, then he has become purified. He is mummified. He's impervious to decay. And he's a fitting complement for Set, who had been thrown out and forced out of rulership by Set. But then once Heru defeats Set, Asar and Set can come back into rulership. Balanced as male and female, purified, resurrected, restored. So then we show that balance of the male and female in ancient Kemet. We show next slide the image of Amenet and Amen, the great mother and great father, Nyamewa, Nyame, or Mawu and Lisa, the great mother and great father, supreme being. And we show that balance of the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit family. And the symbol of Ma'al and Ma'at. So something more detail with regard to that video. You can share that video on Facebook. The reason we do that is because all it takes sometimes for somebody to move towards rejection of programmed acceptance, rejection of misguided emotions, to start the process of rejecting those disordered spirits that will lead you and influence you in a negative way to embrace foolish ideas and rationalize torture, rationalize self-destructive behavior, and rationalize the self-destructive behavior of somebody who's actually your enemy. And instead of seeing this individual as your enemy and throwing them to the dogs, you're making excuses because you want this criminal still in your life. You're making all kinds of excuses for this criminal, while they're constantly torturing you and asking for second, third, and 23rd chances so they can continue to torture you. All it takes is something to trigger your realignment with your cries. Snap out of that coma and realize, wait a minute, I need to get back in harmony with order. And that video has done that for a number of individuals. And then it spurs them to get on their ritual practice and begin to realign their cry, realign with their Samanfo, their ancestresses and ancestors, and begin to sever, to cut off those foolish ideas, projections from disordered spirits, and take control of their lives once again. Cut that enemy off. We talk about summary execution, metal armaments, as well as aduto poison. We have examples of some people who have utilized aduto poison. And the male that was torturing them all of a sudden becomes ill. They become ill, then they begin to suffer with chronic pain. The chronic pain is so destructive and discordant that they can't stand for long periods of time. They can't work any longer because they can't stand and walk for long periods of time. They're suffering from chronic pain, not just for days or weeks, but for years. We have an example of one individual nearly 10 years suffering from chronic pain in the spine and other parts of the body. Doctors can't do anything about it but tell them to take pain medication. They can no longer work. They lose their job, lose their apartment, lose their car, lose their income, and so forth, suffering in poverty, suffering in pain, and they deserve every nanosecond of that pain because they were torturing the woman they were with for a number of years, engaged in that domestic abuse. Now they're suffering in that pain. Some people suffer in that pain, chronic pain, as well as leading to pain for days, months, years. Some people end up dying after they suffer, and they deserve it. So we have different remedies. We have different approaches, externally and internally. This is part of the AKUMA DAN domestic abuse neutralization within Abibiman, the Black nation. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. So once again, as we said at the beginning of the show, we have this Saturday, Miminida, December 17th, here in Washington, D.C., is our Ka'et soul food gathering. Terms Ka and Ka'et means soul, divine consciousness, but Ka and Ka'et also mean food offerings in ancient Kemet. We're having this event. Doors open at 6:30 p.m. Oshwe libation starts at 7. It's a free event. It's open to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. Raw vegan food vendors, cooked vegan food vendors, organic coffee, organic tea. For the Afurakani family, we will be doing a presentation on the Kemeti Feku, properly contextualizing Kemet within ancestral religious practice. We'll be giving away a free copy of our book, Kemet, Hina, and Toro, Black Nation and Divinity, to all who attend. And of course, we do that at all of our events. So if you would like to attend, simply go to the event notification we have put out there on Facebook for the Ka'et Soul Food Gathering or ODWIRA Communal Gathering. Indicate that you're going by clicking going if you're definitely coming. You can share that event as well. That's the registration process. Registration is required. Registration is free. And of course, it's only open to our people only. That's this Miminida, this Saturday, December 17th. All of the details are there. And we also have a Ka'et ODWIRA Soul Food Communal Gathering page on Facebook that we created a special page just for this event. This is our first annual event around the winter solstice, the name period. Also, we also mentioned on Jodoff this past Monday, we mentioned that particular sale that we have going tonight and into tomorrow morning, but tonight is the last night for that sale on our books, the entire 24-book set. We have 24 books that we have published. The entire 24-book set is on sale. Tonight is the last night. $91 plus $9 shipping, which is $100 for the entire set, which includes shipping. 24 books includes Afurakani, the origin of the term Africa, Kemet, Hina, and Toro, the Black Nation and Divinity, Divine Law and Divine Hate, Marane Chi, the origin of the term Yoga, More Means Dead, all of the different books you see on our website, all 24 of those books for $91 plus the shipping, which total is $100 for the entire 24-book set. You can go directly to the page, the Nhoma page, the publications page for that. And again, it's the last night for that, so please take advantage of that. I know some people missed it. So this will assist us in our event for Saturday, including the free book giveaway. We give away a free copy of one of our books to everyone who attends our events. We've given away over 1,100 softcover books at our events over the past year and a half to our people wherever we have spoken in the country. All of our events are always free. They're always open to Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. And we always give away a free copy of one of our books to everyone who attends the event until we run out. So in order to keep that going, to be able to give away those free books, we need to raise funds for that. and to cover the expenses for the free event. So this sale is to assist us in that process. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, please do so. And you could also just purchase one or more of our books if there are certain books that you have not seen yet or not purchased yet. So we only have a couple of minutes left in the broadcast. So what we're going to do is we're going to end the broadcast here. If you have any questions or comments, send them to our email address on Facebook. You can also hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, regular email account on our website. We are going to have another broadcast dealing with this as well. It's going to be a question and answer with the community. We just want to lay this philosophical foundation first. So we will have a part 2 to this broadcast. We just wanted to get this information out and also show the philosophical foundation. Now, when you watch the video and you see that imagery, then you know exactly what we're talking about. And when you share the information and share that video with other people and it gets around Facebook and more views accumulate and so forth, they will know exactly what it's talking about. The key is to spiritually to spur our people to stand up, to be motivated, and if they're involved in these negative relationships, as we said before, it has already spurred some people to snap out of that coma and begin to move back towards their ancestral religious culture. That video was the key for them to break free from that mindset long enough to realize they need to realign with their ritual practices to overcome these programmed emotions, misguided emotions, programmed acceptance of domestic abuse, and they have begun to overcome that. So when you share the video, people will have that philosophical foundation. But next week we will do a part 2 to this broadcast so the community can speak on specific experiences with regard to this issue. So we only have a minute or so left. So again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into the broadcast. And Yebeshi Abio, we will meet again. That's up.